David never thought he would see her again, not after what he did 15 years ago. He was sitting in the back row of the teachers' conference, trying not to fall asleep during another boring presentation about alien cultures in education. The conference hall in Neo Geneva was packed with educators from all over Earth. Everyone was required to attend these sessions to learn about the new interspecies curriculum. David adjusted his tie and glanced at his watch. 3 more hours until he could catch the transport back to his small town where he taught elementary school. He had traded his exciting life as a diplomat for the quiet routine of teaching kids about math and reading. It was safer that way. Less complicated. The presenter was showing slides about different alien species when the main doors opened. A group of important-looking people walked in, clearly from some diplomatic mission. David barely looked up until he heard a familiar sound, the soft hum of advanced technology. His blood went cold. There she was, gliding into the room in what looked like a sleek floating chair that moved with perfect grace. Her long silver hair caught the light, and those distinctive purple markings around her eyes were exactly as he remembered. Princess Zara of the Nexari Empire looked older now, more confident, but unmistakably herself. Their eyes met across the crowded room. Time seemed to stop. David felt his chest tighten as memories flooded back. The last time he saw her, she was crying as his transport ship left her planet. He had promised to come back. He never did. Zara's expression changed from polite interest to shock, then to something harder. Her floating chair moved through the crowd with purpose, heading straight for him. The large alien beside her, probably her bodyguard, followed closely, his 4 arms ready for trouble. "David Chen," she said when she reached him. Her voice was exactly the same, musical and warm, though there was ice in it now. What a surprise! Everyone around them turned to stare. David felt his face burning red. He stood up awkwardly, nearly knocking over his chair. "Your Highness," he said formally, not knowing what else to say. "Oh, we are being formal now?" Zara tilted her head, a gesture he remembered well. "How interesting. The man who once promised to stay with me forever is now calling me by my title." The people nearby were definitely listening now. David could feel their curious eyes on them. A few teachers were even recording with their devices. "Perhaps we could talk somewhere private?" David suggested quietly. "Private," Zara laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "You want privacy now? 15 years too late for that, do not you think?" Her bodyguard stepped forward slightly. "Princess, we should not delay. The Earth Council is expecting us." "Of course they are," Zara said, never taking her eyes off David. "Always business first. Always duties and responsibilities." She paused. "Some people understand that better than others." David felt like he had been punched in the stomach. "Zara, I can explain." "Princess." "Zara," she corrected sharply. "And there's nothing to explain. Your actions spoke clearly enough." The conference presenter had stopped talking entirely now. The whole room was watching this strange drama unfold between a small-town teacher and an alien princess. "I tried to contact you," David said desperately. "The communications were blocked." "For how long?" Zara asked. "A week? A month? 15 years is a very long time to keep trying, David." Her floating chair moved closer, and David could see the small lights blinking along its sides. The technology was far more advanced than what she had used before. Everything about her seemed more sophisticated now, more powerful. "You look well," he said lamely. Zara studied him with those bright amber eyes. "I survived, if that is what you mean. I had to learn to survive without the people I trusted most." She gestured to her chair. "My condition got worse after you left. Much worse. But I adapted. I always adapt." David remembered how she had just started using mobility aids when he knew her. She had been scared about what her people would think, worried that they would see her as weak. He had promised to help her through it. "I am sorry," he said quietly. "I am so sorry, Zara." "Princess Zara," she corrected again. "And sorry does not fix anything, does it? Sorry does not change the fact that I had to face the royal council alone when they questioned my fitness to rule. Sorry does not take back the years I spent wondering what I did wrong." The bodyguard checked his communication device. "Princess, we really must go." Zara nodded but kept looking at David. "I am here on an important mission, the first of its kind between our worlds. Strange how life brings us full circle." "What kind of mission?" David asked. "The kind that might have been easier with a friend who understood both cultures," she said meaningfully. "But I learned not to rely on friends who disappear." She turned to leave, then stopped. "I will be on Earth for 2 months. The diplomatic quarters in Geneva, if you remember where that is." "Zara, wait. Princess Zara," she said one final time. "Some things cannot go back to how they were, David. Some promises once broken cannot be fixed with simple words." She glided away with her bodyguard, leaving David standing alone while hundreds of teachers stared at him. The conference presenter cleared his throat and tried to continue his presentation, but everyone was still looking at David. He sat down heavily, his hands shaking. After 15 years of quiet teaching, his past had found him. The woman he had loved and abandoned was back in his life, and she was clearly not the scared young princess he had left behind. She was stronger now, more confident, more powerful, but she was also hurt, and he had caused that hurt. David pulled out his communication device and stared at it. 2 months, she had said. 2 months to somehow make up for 15 years of silence. He looked up at the screen where the presenter was still talking about alien cultures, but all David could think about was the pain in Zara's eyes and the way she had corrected him every time he used her name. Some promises, once broken, cannot be fixed with simple words. But maybe, just maybe, they could be fixed with actions. David could not sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Zara's face from 15 years ago, young, hopeful, and trusting, so different from the cold princess he had met today. He got up and made coffee, sitting at his small kitchen table as memories flooded back. The promotion to diplomatic service had been the biggest break of his career. At 23, he was the youngest person ever sent to establish trade relations with the Nexari Empire. The Nexari planet was beautiful beyond words. Purple skies, floating cities, and people who looked almost human except for their silver hair and those distinctive markings around their eyes. David had studied their culture for months, but nothing prepared him for actually being there. Princess Zara had been assigned as his cultural guide. She was 21 then, full of energy and curiosity about Earth. She asked him endless questions about human customs while showing him the wonders of her world. "Your people live on the ground?" she had asked in amazement during his first week there. "But why? The air is so much cleaner up here in the floating cities." David laughed. "Not everyone can build cities that float, Your Highness. Just call me Zara," she had said, smiling. "We are friends now, are we not?" Friends. They had become so much more than that. David remembered the exact moment everything changed. It was his 3rd month on the Nexari homeworld. Zara had been showing him the royal gardens when she suddenly stumbled. She caught herself on a nearby wall, but David saw the fear in her eyes. "I am fine," she said quickly. "Just tired." But it happened again the next day, and the day after that. Finally, she told him the truth. "The doctors say I have something wrong with my nervous system," she had whispered one evening as they walked through the palace. "It will get worse over time. My legs will stop working properly." David had taken her hand. "There must be treatments, medicine that can help." Zara shook her head. "Some things cannot be fixed, David. The doctors say I will need help to move. Around soon." Machines to assist me. So, David had said, that does not change who you are. But Zara was terrified. In Nexari culture, physical perfection was highly valued. The royal family was supposed to be the ideal example of their species. A princess who needed help walking was seen as flawed. The council members are already talking, she told him. They say I should step down from my position as heir. They want my younger brother to take my place. David felt anger burning in his chest. That is ridiculous. You are the smartest person. I know. You speak 7 languages. You understand politics better than anyone. But I will need a floating chair soon, Zara said sadly. How can I lead our people if I cannot even walk properly? That was when David made his promise. Then I will help you show them they are wrong, he had said, pulling her close. I will stay here with you. We will prove that you are exactly the leader they need. Zara had looked up at him with those bright amber eyes. You would do that? Give up your life on Earth? My life is wherever you are, David had said. Now, sitting in his dark kitchen 15 years later, David felt sick remembering those words. He had meant them at the time. Every single word. They had spent the next few months working together. David helped Zara practice using her new mobility aids. He attended council meetings with her, supporting her ideas for new policies. He even learned the Nexari language better so he could help her with diplomatic correspondence. The floating chair arrived on a Tuesday. Zara cried when she first saw it, but David convinced her to try it. The technology was incredible. It moved smoothly and responded to her thoughts. She could go anywhere, do anything. See? David had said as they glided through the palace gardens. This does not make you weak. It makes you mobile. Zara had smiled then, really smiled, for the first time in weeks. You always know what to say. They were happy. David had started learning about Nexari laws so he could officially request to stay permanently. Zara was gaining confidence in her new chair and starting to push back against the council members who doubted her. Everything was perfect until David got the emergency message from Earth. His sister Lisa was gone, killed in a transport accident along with her husband. They had left behind 2 young children and massive debts. David's parents were too old to work, and his brother was serving in the military on a distant colony. I have to go back, David had told Zara, his hands shaking as he read the message. Just for a few weeks, to handle the family business. Of course, Zara had said, though he could see the worry in her eyes. Family comes first, I understand. But weeks turned into months. Every time David tried to return to the Nexari homeworld, another crisis hit. The children needed guardians. His parents needed medical care. The family business was collapsing. David tried to explain in his messages to Zara, but the communication systems between Earth and the Nexari Empire were unreliable. His messages took weeks to reach her, and her responses took just as long to come back. The last message he received from her was simple. The council voted today. They say your absence proves that even humans find me unacceptable. I hope your family situation improves. Please do not feel obligated to return. David had tried to send a response, but the diplomatic channels had been closed. The trade negotiations had fallen through without him there to mediate. Earth and the Nexari Empire had cut off most communication. For years, David told himself he had no choice. His family needed him. Zara had told him not to return. What else could he have done? But deep down, he knew the truth. He had gotten scared. Scared of committing to a life so far from home. Scared of the responsibility of supporting Zara through her challenges. Scared of the unknown. So he had let his family crisis become an excuse to stay away. David finished his coffee and looked out the window at the quiet street. Tomorrow he would have to face the truth about what his cowardice had cost both of them. Zara had survived without him. She had become stronger, more confident, more powerful than he had ever imagined possible, and he had become a small-town teacher, hiding from the world and the promises he had broken. David spent 3 days trying to work up the courage to contact Zara. Every time he picked up his communication device, he put it back down. What could he possibly say after 15 years? On the 4th day, she contacted him first. "Meet me at the Geneva Diplomatic Gardens at 3 o'clock, her message said. "We need to talk about something important. This is not personal. It is business." David arrived early, his heart racing. The Diplomatic Gardens were beautiful, a place where representatives from different worlds could meet in neutral territory. Floating bridges connected islands of exotic plants from across the galaxy. Zara was already there, sitting by a fountain that played soft, musical notes. Her floating chair hovered gracefully above the ground, and she looked completely at ease in the peaceful setting. She wore formal diplomatic robes that marked her as an official representative. "You came," she said without looking at him. "You asked me to." "I asked David, the former diplomat, to come," Zara said, finally meeting his eyes. "I was not sure if that person still existed." David sat on a nearby bench, keeping some distance between them. "What did you want to talk about?" Zara was quiet for a moment, watching the fountain. "My people are in danger, David. A hostile species called the Krev have been attacking our outer colonies. They are fierce warriors with advanced weapons. We cannot fight them alone." "I am sorry to hear that," David said carefully. "But I am just a teacher now. I do not do diplomatic work anymore." "I know what you do now," Zara said. "I have kept track of you over the years. Elementary school teacher, in a small town. You live alone. No family of your own. You have made yourself very small." David felt heat rise in his cheeks. "My life is fine." "Is it?" Zara turned her chair to face him fully. "Because the David I knew wanted to change the world. He believed in building bridges between species. He had dreams and ambitions. People change." "Yes, they do." Zara gestured to herself. "I certainly did." David looked at her properly for the first time since arriving. She was right. She had changed dramatically. The scared young woman he remembered had been replaced by someone who radiated confidence and authority. Even sitting in her floating chair, she commanded respect. "The Earth Council has been reluctant to help us," Zara continued. "They say our people are too different, too rigid in our thinking. They point to our old customs about physical perfection and say we are not worthy allies." "Are they wrong?" David asked quietly. Zara smiled, but it was a sad smile. 5 years ago, I became the first disabled ruler in Nexari history. The council tried to stop me, but I had learned a few things about fighting for what I believed in. David felt a stab of guilt. He should have been there to see her achieve that victory. "I changed our laws," Zara went on. "Now all Nexari citizens have equal rights regardless of their physical abilities. We built new cities designed for people with different needs. I made sure no one would face what I faced." "That is incredible," David said, and he meant it. It was not easy, but it was necessary. Zara paused. "The Earth Council is still suspicious, though. They think my appointment as ambassador proves nothing. They want to see real change in our society." "So why are you telling me this?" "Because I need someone who understands both cultures to help me convince them," Zara said. "Someone who knows how humans think, but also understands Nexari customs." David stared at her. "You want my help? After what I did to you?" "I want the help of someone qualified to do the job," Zara said firmly. "Your personal failings are separate from your professional abilities, Zara." "Princess Zara," she corrected, automatically. "This is official business, David. I am not asking as someone who once cared about you. I am asking as a representative of my people who need Earth's military support to survive." David felt the weight of her words. This was not about their past relationship. This was about preventing a war that could destroy her entire civilization. What exactly are you asking me to do? The Earth Council meets again in 1 week. I will present our formal request for alliance. I need someone to help me prepare, someone who can tell me what arguments will work with human leaders, Fess. Thought about his quiet life teaching children about math and reading. It seemed so small compared to what Zara was dealing with. I am not a diplomat anymore, he said. I have been out of that world for too long. Skills like yours do not disappear, Zara said. You still understand people. You still know how to build connections. But why me? There must be other people who could help you. Zara was quiet for a long moment. Because despite everything, that happened between us. You are the only human who ever saw me as capable instead of pitiful, even when I could not see it myself. David felt his throat tighten. Zara, I am not asking you to make up for the past, she interrupted. I am asking you to help save my people's future. Can you do that? David looked at this remarkable woman who had overcome so much. She had turned her greatest vulnerability into her greatest strength. She had changed laws, challenged traditions, and become the leader her people needed, and now she was asking for his help, not because she forgave him, but because lives depended on it. Yes, he said quietly. I can do that. Zara nodded once. Good. We start tomorrow. And David, she paused as her chair began to glide away. Do not mistake this for reconciliation. This is simply two professionals working together for a common goal. David watched her leave, knowing she was right. This was not about fixing their broken relationship. This was about something much bigger than both of them, but as he walked home, he could not shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, this was his chance to finally keep a promise to her. The week of preparation went better than David had expected. Working with Zara felt natural, like riding a bike after years of not cycling. They spent hours in the diplomatic conference rooms, reviewing Earth Council procedures and discussing strategy. Remember, Council Leader Thompson values direct facts over emotional appeals, David explained as they practiced her presentation. But Council Member Rodriguez responds better to stories about real people. Zara nodded, taking notes on her advanced tablet. And the military representatives? They will want to know exact numbers, ship counts, weapon capabilities, battle statistics. They think in terms of tactical advantage. I have all of that prepared, Zara said. She gestured to her floating chair. This situation has taught me to always be prepared for difficult questions. David watched her work and felt amazed by her transformation. The nervous princess he once knew had become a master diplomat. She thought 3 steps ahead of every possible objection. You have become incredible at this, he said during a break. Zara looked up from her notes. I had to become incredible. There was no other choice. Her words stung because David knew he should have been there to help her through that growth. But he pushed the guilt aside. This was not about their past. This was about her people's future. The day of the presentation arrived. The Earth Council. Chambers were packed with representatives from every major nation and colony. News reporters filled the viewing galleries. This was the biggest diplomatic event in years. David sat in the observer section, watching as Zara glided into the chamber. She wore formal Nexari robes that shimmered with silver threads. Her floating chair moved with perfect grace, and she held her head high with royal dignity. Honorable council members, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. I come before you not just as Princess Zara of the Nexari Empire, but as a representative of 3 billion souls who face extinction. Her presentation was flawless. She showed holographic displays of the Krev attacks. She provided detailed military analysis. She explained how an alliance would benefit both species. The council members listened respectfully and asked thoughtful questions. David began to feel hopeful. This was going well. Then Council Member Patterson stood up. "Your Highness?" Patterson said with a tone that made David's stomach drop. "I have a question about your qualifications to represent your people in this matter." "Of course," Zara replied calmly. "Is it true that you require mechanical assistance? To move around?" Patterson gestured toward her floating chair. "How can we trust someone who cannot even walk to lead us into a military alliance?" The chamber went completely silent. David felt his blood boiling as he watched Zara's face remain perfectly composed. "That is correct," she said simply. "I use assistive technology for mobility. And you expect us to believe that your people chose someone with such limitations to handle their most important diplomatic mission?" Patterson continued. "Or were you simply the only royal they were willing to risk?" Other council members shifted uncomfortably. Some looked angry at Patterson's rudeness, but others seemed to be waiting for Zara's answer. David could not take it anymore. He stood up in the observer section. "Excuse me," he called out. "May I address the council?" "This is highly irregular," the council leader said. "Who are you?" "David Chen, former Earth Diplomatic Corps," David said, walking toward the speaker's platform. "I have worked extensively with Nexari culture and Princess Zara specifically." He saw Zara's eyes widen in surprise. She had not expected him to interfere. "Council, Member Patterson raises an interesting point about qualifications," David continued as he reached the platform. "So let me share some facts about Princess Zara's record." David looked directly at Patterson. 5 years ago, she became the first disabled ruler in Nexari history. Since then, she has reformed their legal system to guarantee equal rights for all citizens. She has redesigned their cities to be accessible to everyone. She has turned the Nexari Empire from a society that valued physical perfection into one that values capability and contribution. The chamber was completely quiet now. Every eye was on David. "But more importantly," he continued, "she chose to come here herself instead of sending someone else. She could have stayed safe on her homeworld while others begged for help. Instead, she risked facing exactly the kind of prejudice we just witnessed because she believes Earth and the Nexari Empire can be true allies." David turned to face the full council. "Princess Zara does not need me to defend her qualifications. Her actions speak for themselves. But if we are going to judge people by their physical abilities instead of their achievements, then we are not the enlightened society we claim to be." He walked back to his seat, his heart pounding. Zara was staring at him with an unreadable expression. Council Leader Thompson stood up. "Thank you for those comments. Princess Zara, would you like to add anything?" Zara's chair glided forward. "Only this," she said, her voice stronger than before. "My disability has taught me that true strength comes from adaptation, not perfection. It has shown me that the most valuable allies are those who see potential instead of limitations." She looked directly at Patterson. "If you judge your allies by their physical appearance rather than their capabilities, you will find yourself very alone when real threats appear." The vote was called immediately. The alliance passed by a wide margin, with only 3 council members voting against it. As the chamber emptied, Zara approached David in the hallway. "That was not necessary," she said quietly. "Yes, it was," David replied. "Someone needed to say what everyone else was thinking." Zara studied his face. "Why did you do it? This was supposed to be strictly professional." David met her eyes. "Because 15 years ago, I promised to help you show the world how capable you are. I broke that promise then, but I could keep it today." For the first time since their reunion, Zara's formal mask slipped slightly. "David, I know this does not fix anything between us," he said quickly, "but your people deserve to have someone stand up for their remarkable princess." Zara was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Thank you." It was just 2 words, but David heard something in her voice that had not been there before. Not forgiveness, Exactly, but perhaps the beginning of something like respect. The alliance was approved. Earth and the Nexari Empire would work together to face the Krev threat. And for the first time in 15 years, David felt like he had done something that mattered. 2 months later, David stood in the Geneva spaceport watching Zara's transport ship being prepared for departure. The alliance had been signed, sealed, and was already being implemented. Earth's fleet was heading to Nexari space to help defend against the Krev attacks. Zara had become something of a celebrity during her stay on Earth. News outlets called her the princess who changed everything. Universities invited her to speak about disability rights and inclusive leadership. Young people across the galaxy started following her example, demanding better treatment for people with different abilities. David had watched it all from a distance, returning to his teaching job after the council vote. He told himself that his part was done. He had helped her succeed, and now she could return home as a hero. But as he watched the boarding preparations, he realized he was not ready to say goodbye again. "I thought you might be here," Zara said, her floating chair gliding up beside him. David turned. She was dressed in traveling clothes instead of her formal diplomatic robes, looking more relaxed than he had seen her in months. "I wanted to see you off properly this time," he said, "instead of just disappearing." "That is thoughtful of you." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the busy spaceport activity around them. Finally, David spoke. "I have been thinking about what you said, about keeping promises. Have you?" "I made you a promise 15 years ago that I did not keep," David said. "But I want to make you a different promise now, a better one." Zara raised an eyebrow. "I am listening." David took a deep breath. "I promise not to make grand declarations about changing my whole life for you. I promise not to claim I can fix everything or make up for the past." "Those are interesting promises," Zara said carefully. "I am not done," David continued. "I promise to be honest about my limitations. I promise to respect your independence and your strength. And I promise that if you ever want my help with anything, I will give it freely, without expecting anything." In return, Zara was quiet for a moment. "And what do you want from me in exchange for these promises?" "Nothing," David said. "That is the point. These are not bargaining chips. They are just promises. The kind adults make to each other." "Adults," Zara repeated with a small smile. "We are both rather different from the young people who knew each other before." "Completely different," David agreed. "You became a leader who changed the galaxy. I became a teacher who hides in small towns." "Is that really how you see yourself?" Zara asked. "Because I watched you stand up to the Earth Council for someone who had every right to hate you. That did not look like hiding to me." David felt warmth spread through his chest. "Maybe I am still figuring out who I am." "Maybe we both are." The boarding announcement echoed through the spaceport. Zara's ship would be leaving soon. "I have a confession," Zara said as they walked toward the boarding gate. "I knew you were going to be at that teacher's conference." David stopped walking. "What?" "I requested the specific time and location for my arrival," Zara said, not looking at him. "I wanted to see what kind of person you had become." "And what did you discover?" "That you were still the man who cared more about others than himself," Zara said quietly. "Even if you had forgotten that about yourself." They reached the boarding area. Other passengers were already getting on the ship. "Zara," David said, using her name without her title for the first time since their reunion. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you think—" He paused, searching for the right words. "Do you think there might be room in your life for an old friend? Not someone trying to reclaim the past, but someone who would like to be part of your future?" Zara considered this carefully. "That depends. What kind of future are you talking about?" "I do not know," David admitted. Maybe I could apply for a position with the Earth Nexari Cultural Exchange Program. Maybe I could help with the integration projects you are planning. Maybe I could just visit sometimes and catch up on what you have been doing. All of that sounds very reasonable, Zara said. Reasonable is good, David said. I am done with grand gestures that I cannot follow through on. Final boarding call for Transport 7 to Nexari Prime, the announcement system called out. Zara moved toward the boarding platform, then stopped. David, there is something you should know. What is it? My condition has progressed since you last knew me. I will never walk again. This chair is not temporary assistance. It is my life now. She paused. If you are thinking about being part of my future, you need to understand that this is who I am, not someone who needs to be fixed or pitied. David looked at her sitting in her advanced floating chair, radiating confidence and strength. Princess Zara, he said formally, then smiled. I would be honored to know the woman who conquered the galaxy from her floating throne. Zara laughed, really laughed, for the first time since their reunion. Conquered the galaxy? That is a bit dramatic, do not you think? Not from where I am standing. She reached out and touched his hand briefly. Apply for that cultural exchange position. We have schools on the Nexari homeworld that could use a good teacher. Are you offering me a job? I am offering you a chance to keep those new promises you made, Zara said, if you are genuinely ready for that. David felt something he had not experienced in 15 years. Hope for a future that included more than just quiet safety. I will send my application tomorrow, he said. Good. Zara glided onto the boarding platform. And David? This time, if life gets complicated, try talking to me instead of disappearing. I promise, he said, and meant it completely. The transport doors closed, and David watched the ship lift off into the afternoon sky. But this time, instead of feeling like he was losing something precious, he felt like he was beginning something new. 6 months later, David stepped off his own transport onto the Nexari homeworld. Zara was waiting for him at the spaceport, exactly as she had promised. Welcome home, she said. Thank you, David replied. And for the first time in 15 years, he truly felt like he was exactly where he belonged.